Good evening. We will call the Auburn City Council meeting for Monday, April 17th, 2023 to order. We will begin with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge the federally recognized Muckleshoot Indian Tribe, the ancestral keepers of the land we are gathered on today. We thank them for their immense contributions to our state and local history, culture, economy, and identity as Washingtonians. Today, the Auburn City Council meeting will be held both in person and virtually. And if you would please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. And Sean, will you please call roll?
Deputy Mayor Jayrush.
I'm here.
Councilmember Baggett.
Here.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Malenga.
Here.
Councilmember Rakes.
Here.
Councilmember Trot Manuel.
Here.
All right, and council, at this time, we are going to move into an executive session. The City Council will adjourn into executive session per RCW 42.30.110 subset 1 subset I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency in matters related to agency enforcement actions, or to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency. The length of time for the executive session is 30 minutes. In addition to myself, the City Council, City Attorney Como, Chief Collier, Director Martinson, and outside counsel Stu Estes from Keating, Buckland, and McCormick will be required to attend. Council, we are going to adjourn to a room upstairs, so I'm going to ask that we be given 5 minutes to get up there, or 3 minutes. We can do 3. Let's do 3 minutes, so we will adjourn to executive session for 30 minutes.
Get on your chair.
And how do I, can we turn it on?
Turn it off? Sure. Oh, yeah, we sure can turn that right off.
I was gonna ask you, if I just was gonna.
So if you just want to, we can certainly use it, just as you're walking around, it's just causing feedback through the speakers. It's a horrible noise.
How you think I don't use one in a theater?
make sure it's perfect. Okay. Okay.
right, I will call the meeting back to order, and we will move to the next portion of our agenda, which are announcements, mayor's proclamations, and presentations. We do have a proclamation this evening. It is not on the agenda, but I am going to move over to the podium, and we'll do this before we do the presentation. All right, and I would like to call up our Miss Auburn's teen, Caitlin Gallo, to join me. Hello. All right, we have a mayor's proclamation tonight, and if family or anyone wants to take photos, you're more than welcome to come up and take photos. I know how this goes. All right, mayor's proclamation. Whereas students and families have been deeply affected by the pandemic, and children are likely facing increased stress due to the changes, fear, and uncertainty caused by illness and isolation at rates never seen before. And whereas the Center for Disease Control and Prevention reports that more than 20% of youth have a diagnosed mental health disorder in the United States. Whereas Miss Auburn's teen, Caitlin Gallo, is creating awareness and developed methods to help manage stress. Recent polls reflect that most high school students have already experienced anxiety attacks at such a young age. And whereas teens rated their stress a 5.8 on a 10-point scale, and 3.9 is considered healthy. Reported side effects of their stress include 31% feeling overwhelmed, 30% sad or depressed, and 36% were fatigued or tired. The study also found that teenagers do not know many healthy ways to cope with their stress. And whereas studies show that educating parents and educators, friends and students in the signs and symptoms of mental illness is key to be both early intervention and dismantling the stigma surrounding health. Now, therefore, I, Nancy Backus, Mayor of Auburn, do hereby proclaim April 2023 as Stress Awareness Month and encourage all residents in our community to learn more about the effects of designated stress relief activities and to participate in appropriate activities, dated the 17th day of April 2023. And Caitlin, I will give you that, and I think Jonathan wants a. Okay, I will give you that, and I'm sure you have a few words that you would like to say.
Yes.
Please.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right, good evening, Mayor Backus and the members of the City Council. I would like to thank you for proclaiming the month of Auburn, or the month of April, as Stress Awareness Month in Auburn. As Miss Auburn's teen, my community service initiative is Stress Less, Be Your Best, promoting healthy stress management among teens. This initiative is significant to me, knowing that stress greatly impacts many students today. Starting from a very young age, I myself have always struggled with stress and anxiety. I wasn't fully able to understand what that feeling was, and I wasn't able to go through day-to-day tasks. I spent years knowing how to cope with stress, but once I picked up music therapy, that is what really helped me get through it. I'm now able to share different ways on how to stress less to many different students of all ages, whether it's reading to elementary school students, or playing games with middle school students, or even giving a presentation to high school students. Fortunately, I was able to create a survey for students to answer questions on the topic of stress. Out of the 71 Auburn area students that responded, I found that 85.9% of students say that they feel overwhelmed, tired, depressed, and anxious throughout their school day, followed by 88.6% of students saying that social media has an effect on teenagers' mental health. As Miss Auburn's teen, it is my responsibility to encourage others to join me in the fight against stress. As a proud constituent of Auburn, I look forward to representing the community of Auburn at the Miss Washington's Teen Competition in June and further on my year. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. What was your stress level while you were up here? Was it above? Was it above? You did a fabulous job. Hopefully it wasn't too stressful for you. Thank you so much. All right, next on the agenda is a presentation from WashDOT. Blake Jones from the I-405 State Route 167 Corridor Program will present updates around the State Route 167 Master Plan process. Blake, good evening.
Good evening. I'm sorry, Blake is our handler and he isn't here, but I am.
Well, welcome, and please let us know who you are.
I am Lisa Hodson. I am the program administrator for the 405-167 corridor, and I'm here with April Dale Champs, who's our manager for the 167 master plan. And
Wonderful.
I don't know, where do I start is there a video that starts?
I don't know how to do the presentation we had sent through.
Did you guys get a presentation from us?
I don't know that I did have. Do you know who you sent it to?
It was sent last night. So I do have, in your packets is looks like a PowerPoint? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Let me pull it up.
Sorry, that's why I have a handler.
And that darn Blake, right?
Yes. That's gonna help.
Sorry, it's a CC guest.
It's not. That'll help. Is that you?
Yeah, go to other user. And then CC guest, all lowercase. And then agenda 25, capital A. Exclamation point.
You don't need a phone?
We'll do that next. Larry, that's back here. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you so much. We will move it along here. So we're here tonight. I'm going to give you some updates about our program, give you a little bit of background on our program, and then April will talk about the wonderful things they're doing on the 167 master plan. And we'll have a little bit of time for questions and answer. As we look at our corridor, we know that this corridor is very important to the region and to the state. The 405-167 forms a north-south companion to I-5 for an alternative that helps people in the area get through with freight, goods, and services along the corridor. When we complete our corridor, it'll be about 50 miles of managed lanes. That helps to provide a reliable trip when you need it. It also helps with what we have as bus rapid transit on 405. We looked at transit services in general, and carpool all get a benefit out of that managed system. Our program has two foundational documents. So we have a 405 master plan. We also had a 167 corridor plan that is currently being pulled up to that master plan level that April will talk about. And that's what guides our program. And the main purpose of our program is really to deliver a comprehensive strategy that helps to manage congestion, looks at improving mobility and safety performance, and also as we look to accommodate regional growth and enhance the quality of life, not just for the constituents that we work for, but also for the environment. We have a long history, but I really wanted to kind of talk about our turning point, which was in 2009. And so that's when we did come with our 167 corridor plan. The corridor has been very successful in delivering and being funded for about $4 billion worth of work. We delivered about $2 billion of work over the last 15 years, and we're looking forward to delivering about $2 billion over the next 5 years. So in 2009, we had our corridor plan, and that really marked where the system became that 50-mile system and a recognition that 167 and 405 link together. In 2010, we were able to adopt our implementation plan through our executive advisory group that put in a 10-year strategy to deliver that past $2 billion that we have delivered. Just wanted to note in 2019, we're also given the authority to bond against toll revenue, and several projects were delineated in 2019. And then in 2022, with the Move Ahead Washington, that gave us the final funding to move these forward. And so we have an executive advisory group that has corridor stakeholders all along 167 and 405, and they've been really engaged as we work to collaborate to look for the greatest performance of the system we have out there. That executive advisory group came in the 1990s, late 1999, and we've been working to prioritize and implement projects together. It's comprised of our local, state, and elected officials, regional transit agencies, federal transportation agencies, and including Mayor Backus, who's been very active with our executive advisory group. And we really want to make sure, with the completion of that master plan for 167 on the horizon, that executive advisory group role remains constant and critical as we look to implement into the future. I'm just going to do a brief update on some of the projects that we've had and are moving forward with. So on 167 in the northbound direction, an additional 9 miles of an HOV lane system was opened up in August of last year. That was funded by toll revenue and connecting Washington and delivered by our Olympic region. We're very excited about the use that it's been utilized in that area as well. In addition to that, we have a corridor improvement project on 167 that will look at taking that legacy system for the hot lane and bringing it up to the same level as 405, so it has the same compatibility. It will have destination pricing and also the opportunity for photo tolling. In addition to that, we will also be doing some strategic widening, so an auxiliary lane in the southbound direction. And then, like that northbound HOV system, we're also going to have a companion in the southbound direction, and so that will offer another 6 miles in the southbound direction. We're looking to start design in have it out on the street in 2025 and open in 2028, which also matches very well with the Puget Sound Gateway program and the opening of the 167 portion. And then I just wanted to recognize our Renton to Bellevue project. So about 30 to 40% of the folks on 167 will travel on to 405 in that northbound Renton area. And that, northbound and southbound, sorry. So that project's currently under construction. That will bring the system to a 50-mile managed system when it opens up. And we're working towards some big construction this summer and looking forward to that opening as well. We do have other projects, but I wanted to just keep it to what's going on predominantly at 167. So there's some additional projects on the screen that you're welcome to look at in the future. And one last thing I just wanted to note is that in the future, Caroline Barnett with my program is assigned to the southbound 167 regional area. And so in the future, you might see her come when you need additional information. And I give her contact information. And just a recognition, she's been with my programs for 20 years, and so she's very fluid with this whole area. So, and now I'm going to turn over to April.
Hello, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here to update you on what you and many of your staff have been working on for nearly 2 years now. So my name is April Dalshamps. I'm the 167 Master Plan WashDOT lead. And I wanted to walk you through a bit of the process that we have gotten to this point. We released a recommendation of a different set of strategies as well as projects in our last round of meetings, and I'll walk through that. Before that, I wanted to kind of walk through a little bit of the process that we got here. So we want to many stages of listening, and how we set up this process is to do it in 5 phases, and that was intentional to make sure that we were listening along the way and we were using what we were hearing from the community as well as our partners as we develop the recommendation and inform each step that builds upon the previous one. To kind of walk you through, we started talking about this many, many years ago, but really talking in forms of the study process in October of 2021. And during that stage, we really were listening to understand what were the transportation challenges and what were the transportation needs and priorities of the 167 constituents, those that use it, those that live near it, and those that go through our area. Our phase 2 really focused on existing condition and future conditions. And really, it was to understand what is the lay of the land, what is our environmental constraints, what are congestion relief, and what happens when we do nothing as we look to the future and start understanding what that looks like. For phase 3, we really worked with a lot of cities as well as many from the city of Auburn to understand what were the projects that are on the books that are already around it. 167 is a single corridor, but it operates within a single system of local roadways as well as arterials and other state routes. And so we really wanted to understand what are the projects on the books, both from WashDOT's perspective on 167, as well as on the books of locals, so transportation improvement programs and long-range and comprehensive plans to understand what is the compilation of projects that we need to start understanding what is planned in this area and what is needed as we start looking at growth in both employment as well as in households. Our phase 4 was starting to look at developing multimodal scenarios. And really what that comes down to is understanding what groupings of projects can start really getting at the need that we heard in that very first phase. That includes projects that came off the books of different TIPs as well as long-range plans, but it also includes new projects that were developed in response to what we heard. Many of them are multimodal. There's many on 167. There's also some on local streets. And as we start addressing this from a multimodal as well as multi-agency focus. And that really led us to our step 5, our phase 5, where we're at now. We went through the scenarios. We started analyzing and trying to understand what is the things. Are we meeting the goals we set out to solve and the needs that we have addressed? And so we're wrapping up and starting to work on that final report now. And one thing I want to point to over to the right is the implementation plan. This is the first step, one of the graphics that was shown earlier by Lisa. The next step is really a phasing implementation, understanding what goes first, what goes next, how do we fund this, how do we work together to start delivering this vision for 167. And then as on the bottom, we really have been listening throughout and starting to do our community engagement as well as an equity advisory committee and 2 online open houses. So a little bit of our structure. One thing that was critically important is to make sure that we were listening to as many voices as we could. So we have a 3-committee structure. Our technical advisory committee, which is made up of many public works directors, technical city staff, Port of Seattle, Port of Tacoma, and many others like that. Our policy advisory committee, which is comprised of elected officials, including Mayor Backus, and then our equity advisory committee. And this is made up of our community-based organizations that serve the people that are equity populations within our study area. Each of those committees were informed by what we heard from our community, and we brought that up in order to elevate it for each step along the way. This was really a data-informed and partner and community-defined. The data gave us some information, and our partners really helped us understand the nuances and the things that we can't see with data as we're starting to run through. And this informed everything from the study area, which is on the screen, all the way to the recommendation, which I'll share. A little bit of our process I had hinted at earlier. It really was iterative, and it was about building on what we heard. We sat down to really understand the vision of where do we want to go with this quarter? What is important? How do we get there? Our goals really start laying out the roadmap of how we start getting there. Our metrics are how we measure if we've started to make success. The scenarios where we applied the metrics, we're understanding what packaging of projects really made the most difference, all the way down to the recommendation. And vein throughout that is partner and community feedback as we refined and really understood What are the things we're not seeing that the data doesn't tell us? What are the pieces that we're not going to understand by driving down the road or looking at a model? And just a brief pause on this one. This is the vision that was developed with our partners, and then the master plan goals. And lastly, our recommendation. And I'm going to walk through just a couple high level. I have my full list, but a couple that I thought was important to mention today are something that was really advocating for the recommendation is included in the recommendation is completing the 2 missing ramps at the State Route 167, State Route 18 interchange. Additionally, at this interchange, rebuilding the westbound to southbound ramp in order to improve freight mobility from how it's operating now. There also is a northbound as well as a southbound auxiliary lane on State Route 167 between Ellingston Road and State Route 18, and then also a auxiliary lane on State Route 18 all the way to 164. In addition, there is a second ETL, express toll lane, all the way from 405 south down to the 167 completion project. And then the last 2 I'll mention is an Auburn direct access ramp. There is a bus rapid transit on 167 in order to make that function and really be effective and have a reliable trip. It's important for it to be able to get to different stations, including for Auburn Sounder Station. The direct exact location of that is not known. That's not the level of detail for this study. That's something we're going to need to figure out in our next phases. And another one to mention is an Ellingston Road, the BNSF overcrossing. We'll be proposing to rebuild and reconstruct that overcrossing to accommodate additional lane as well as a multi-purpose travel path to connect some trails. There's additionally many transit routes that would serve the Auburn Sounder Station as well as other locations. A couple of pieces, engagement by the numbers. We just closed our second online open house on April 15th. I do not have those numbers. I tried to get them and I was not successful today. I'm sorry, you would have been the first to hear it, but I'll email them. But these are our numbers of our engagement to date through March. This includes co-creation workshops where we went directly to the community and really leaned in to understand those that traditionally have a hard time participating in these processes. We had advisory committee meetings. We had an online open house in the spring to really understand what are the needs of the community. And this all was used to really inform each step of the way as we were going through. And lastly, just on next steps, that online open house, I missed updating that bullet. That is my fault. It just closed. But we do have our last round of technical advisory committee, equity advisory committee, and policy advisory committee meetings in May. Our next steps is we're going to be sharing a draft report with our partners in late April. We're looking to start documenting support for the recommendation as we start partnering to understand and start looking forward to the future. And then we're going to be developing that Pell report. We're in the final stages of it, thank goodness, as we're going through. And then lastly, looking towards the future. Currently, the implementation plan is unfunded, but it's a critical next step in order to start developing what the phasing plan and what the funding, and as we start developing down the path to partnership and building projects. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Councilmember Trout-Manuel.
Lisa, you were the first one to talk?
Yes.
Okay, on the Bellevue toll in 167, where's that going to be at? Is there going to be a toll? Is that what you meant by Bellevue toll authorization?
We were authorized to bond against the toll revenue. Currently, 167 has the hot lanes, which collects funds, and then on in Bellevue to Linwood, we have the managed lanes up there, the express toll lanes that also have funding that comes from that. And so Renton to Bellevue is that missing link that would also have those express toll lanes. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just curious because when I see towing, I see a toll bridge, a toll box and stuff like that. So I was just curious what you meant about toll.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyone else have a question? Councilmember Trout-Manuel.
Yes, and you mentioned about funding. I see that is 5.5 and up to 6.0 billion. Where is all of that coming from?
So this is not the phase where we do funding and identify funding sources. That's about in line with what the 405 master plan cost, as well as other master planning efforts. Just like 405 as well as Gateway, it's going to take a partnership. It's going to take the legislative, it's going to take grant applications as we go through to start delivering the projects. This is the vision. The hard part comes next to build it.
I was just going to add to, that's what's important about the Executive Advisory Group, is they work together to talk about what's the next best set of projects to maximize the funding and the maximization of the system benefits. And so that's kind of why I had put that into the slide, is just to make sure that folks know that even though that's done, we're not done, because we have this Executive Advisory Group as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Other questions, council? Lisa, April, thank you very much. Thanks for coming and being patient with us as we started the evening with an executive session. And a huge kudos to Ingrid and her team for all of the work that they do as part of the technical advisory committee. They do great work, making sure that Auburn is well represented on all of these committees. All right, we will move to appointments. This evening, we have two different appointments. The first is for the Transportation Advisory Board. City Council to approve the appointment of Derek Ronfelt to the Transportation Advisory Board, representing Green River College, for a 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025. Is there a motion? Is there a motion? Councilmember Rakes, did you have your, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to accept Derek Ronfelt to the Transportation Advisory Board.
To approve the appointment.
To approve the appointment.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Trout-Manuel.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Rakes, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I read through Derek's stuff. I think he's a great candidate to be on the Transportation Advisory Board, and we're lucky to have him.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? All right, all those in favor of the appointment of Derek Ronfelt to the Transportation Advisory Board representing Green River College, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes unanimously. Next is for the Parks and Recreation Board. City Council to approve the appointment of Tiffany Lindsay to the Parks and Recreation Board for a 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025. Is there a motion? Councilmember Baldwin.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the appointment of Tiffany Lindsay to the Parks and Recreation Board for a 3-year term expiring December 31st of 2025.
Thank you. Is there a second? Deputy Mayor.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Thank you, Mayor. Tiffany is currently a director and board member of the Auburn Ravens Youth Football and Cheer Program. She's a wish granter with the Make-A-Wish Foundation and currently serves on the board for Impact Project Washington. Serving our community has always been a huge part of who she is, and she's excited to serve.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? All those in favor of the appointment of Tiffany Lindsay to the Parks and Recreation Board, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Motion carries unanimously. Sean, do we have any agenda modifications this evening other than the proclamation?
No, Your Honor, not other than the proclamation.
Thank you. All right, we will move to audience participation. This is the place on the agenda where the public is invited to speak to the City Council on any issue. The public can participate in person or submit written comment in advance. Participants can submit written comment via mail, fax, or email. All written comments must be received prior to 5 p.m. on the day of the scheduled meeting and must be 350 words or less. Please mail written comments to City of Auburn, attention Sean Campbell, City Clerk, 25 West Main Street, Auburn, Washington, 98001. Please fax written comments to attention Sean Campbell, City Clerk, at 253-804-3116, or email written comment to publiccomment@auburnwa.gov. If an individual requires an accommodation to allow for remote oral comment because of a difficulty attending a meeting of the governing body, the city requests notice of the meeting for accommodation by 5 p.m. on the day of the scheduled meeting. Participants can request an accommodation to be able to provide remote oral comment by contacting the city clerk's office in person, by phone at 253-931-3039, or email to publiccomment@auburnwa.gov. Sean, do we have anyone online or any written testimony?
No one online, but we do have one written comment from Tracy Darcet. She expressed concerns regarding crime and suggested the city do a self-defense course.
Thank you. All right. Is there anyone in the room that would like to provide comment this evening? If so, please come forward, give your name and address for the record, and please limit comments to 3 minutes. There'll be a timer right there by Sean that you can see.
Got you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Deputy Mayor, City Council, officers, and Chief. My name is David Chivas. I am a 100% disabled veteran. I live right across the street at the Legacy Plaza, South 17 South Division. I'm trying to remember it. I've been here for actually about 2.5 months here, and I want to give you props and respect and just point out a few things. I was always told this by my stepfather: if you really want to see what's going on in the place you live, you have fresher eyes when you first come there. So here we go. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for having me in your beautiful residence here. Thank you for the beautiful magazine as well. I do read it, Mayor, and I like what you have to say about the homeless list and how we're working on that. I love the beautiful art that you guys have downtown. And we talk about stress. I'm 100% major depression and PTSD veteran. I work with the DAV, the Disabled Veterans of America. I work with the USO at SeaTac, with those guys there. And I just started volunteering with Matt down there. And I'm also doing a YouTube channel to help out veterans, to help them get through their stressful things here. So I had to point out a lot of the beautiful things here, your magazine, the history of the museum. Believe it or not, it took me 2 or 3 weeks to get used to the train, but I'm loving it. Okay, so I go out and do a lot of shooting of the train. The thing that I have to bring up is, since I suffer from PTSD and I suffer from major depression, I don't really get into crowds a lot. So I get out at nighttime and I walk through our city. I walk over to Safeway. I walk over to I walk up Auburn Way just to get familiar. I'm over by the train station. Now, I'm going to be coming to you guys a lot. If you know Chief Drafer, mention my name and hopefully he'll smile. Okay, and if you know the mayor of Tukwila, hopefully Alan will smile as well. I got a blessing to meet a few of you while I'm here. So the thing that I'm interested in here now is, how many live downtown? I know somebody who lives downtown. All right, so let me give you your fresh eyes on this. Just today, and this has been for the last 3 weeks or 2 weeks, there's blatantly people standing right at the bus stop doing methamphetamine. Same place over behind the Shell station at this little abandoned house. That's been going on. I walk down the street, and yes, we're dealing with the homeless. I'm doing my best, since I'm suffering from mental issues, is how we can address these with helping out our fellow citizens. But please, councilmen, keep your ears to the street and you see what your constituents who are living downtown. Because I know we want our businesses back here, but we have to understand that we have seniors who are your grandfathers and your grandmothers who are living down here, and they're inviting their kids here. And if we cannot get help with the drugs that's going on in the streets, we are going to be back to square one. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you, and I wish you nothing but the best of blessings. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you very much for your service to our country. And welcome home. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Please come forward, give your name and address for the record, and please limit comments to 3 minutes.
Virginia Haugen, 2503 R Street Southeast, Auburn. I'd like to thank Councilmember Baldwin for this. Didn't expect it when I came to this meeting. I did get my agenda, and I knew that it was going to be We were going to talk about vacation and sick leave accrual. I realized just last night, I believe, or no, it was early this morning when I couldn't sleep. I just thought about it and I said, of course, people were upset when they learned about the mayor asking for payment of accrued sick leave and vacation. And it dawned on me why. They were caught off guard as I was. We no longer have committee meetings. I was at a meeting when a council member said that council members have too many meetings. I've been on the council, and that's what it's about. It's about being in Auburn, having committee meetings, public meetings, where you got to cast a vote and let us know what's going on. And I want to apologize publicly for being really rough on you people the last time I was here. But I've had a stressful day, and I'm a lot older than most of you. Well, I don't know. I don't know where a bag it is, but I'm not going to ask him. Seriously, if we had 3 council members, I believe, that wanted to go back to the committee system instead of ad hoc. I was at a meeting here and I watched the deadpan expressions on 4 council members' faces because they simply didn't want to have to go to committee meetings. However, when they went to meetings outside of Auburn on state, county, particular issues, they got paid $50 for those meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? All right, we will move on. Sean, I don't believe there's correspondence for council review.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. We will move to council ad hoc committee reports. Council ad hoc committee chairs may report on the status of their ad hoc council committee's progress on assigned tasks and may give their recommendation to the city council, if any. We will begin with finance, and that is chaired by Councilmember Baldwin.
Thank you, Mayor. For the Finance Ad Hoc Committee's report, the committee consisting of Councilmember Robert Baggett and myself reviewed 1 set of claims vouchers. For those dated April 17th, 2023, we reviewed 148 pages of claims vouchers, including 3 wire transfers, for a total of approximately $4.84 million. The committee also reviewed 1 set of payroll vouchers for the period covering March 30th, 2023 to April 12th, 2023, totaling approximately $2.76 million. All questions by the committee for the Finance Department were answered to the committee's satisfaction, and upon completion of our review, the committee recommends that council approve the vouchers.
Thank you. All right, next is the Ad Hoc Committee for Mayoral Benefits and Leave Compensation Review. That is also chaired by Councilmember Baldwin.
Thank you, Mayor. So there is a presentation within your packet for this week, and we'll take us through that. I don't know if you want to splash that up on the screens. That's available. Preference? Sean, could you, or could someone put that up? Thank you, Sean. Where do we go? All right, so kicking off with our report, in November of 2022, staff brought forward ordinances 6889 and 6890 with the intent to clean up code language related to city leave and align with RCW changes from 2018. During review of these ordinances, Council identified language related to the handling of leave accruals for the mayoral position that revealed a potential financial exposure and room for potential abuse. In order to reduce the risk for the city, Council voted to table the ordinances for additional review and created the ad hoc committee to investigate and propose improvements. Based on this, the ad hoc committee was formed, and our duties, as defined, were to work with staff to gather both historic and comparative data, to evaluate the current ordinance, to establish appropriate legal span of control, to develop options for revising the existing ordinance language, and present our findings back to Council in study session, or, as we are today in Council, when next steps may be determined by Council as a group. The committee members included myself as chair, Councilmember Robert Baggett, and Deputy Mayor James Jairaj. Our timeline, looking back, was that we first saw these as the ordinances were brought to Council in November 28th, 2022. The motion to table the ordinances for further review occurred in December 19th of 2023. And then we moved into the new year, and January 9th, where we had first proposed to review the materials. That study session was canceled due to IT network outage related to high winds. By February 6th and 7th, the committee was formed and members were identified. On the 13th of February of this year, we first met with staff and requested a set of materials, which you'll see what all was requested on our next slide. And then we went into a period of review where committee members dove into the materials, and then we regrouped in March between the 10th and 21st to continue to develop draft proposals that we could bring forward. And here we are today on the 17th with our first presentation. Now, when I say that we asked for materials, you'll see what we have listed here. These were all the materials requested of staff. So we had asked for a comparative chart which would show for both each director and by regional mayors vacation leave accrual rates, vacation leave caps and maxes, vacation leave carryover, our vacation leave policy for either termination or departure. We also wanted to understand sick leave accrual rates, sick leave maxes and caps, to understand sick leave carryover, as well as requested the policy language for sick leave handling for termination and departure. And so that was requested to be developed in a chart to understand both by director within Auburn as well as for regional mayors. The cities that we had initially requested to look at included Federal Way, Kent, Bellingham, Renton, Berrien, and Issaquah. And we did ask as well that staff, if they had additional cities suggested, provide those. You'll see in the chart, of which everyone has had one provided at the dais, as well as some in the audience, that the cities we looked at included those that are used within the Independent Salary Commission today when they're looking at comparative salaries for understanding the annual evaluation of mayoral compensation. And then for other materials that we had requested, we also asked that we receive the materials that were presented to the Independent Salary Commission for the past 5 years, to include minutes of those meetings, as well as the current roster, which would indicate the membership and year appointed, to understand the final votes for the past 5 years, and as well to have a set of HR policies to cover any leave benefits or payout for the mayoral position. So quite a lot of information that was requested and provided and gathered. So thank you very much to staff for that. Any questions on what was requested? No. Okay. You'll see in the spreadsheet that's been provided a few items that I want to highlight specifically as we look at this. And so One of the things that you'll note as we're exploring the columns for the different mayoral roles that we see across different cities, we have Kent, Everett, Renton, Federal Way, Bellingham, Redmond, Marysville, Bremerton, Edmonds, and Issaquah. Now, across these different cities, you'll see in the second column under the mayoral position that of the cities compared, 4 of those do not have any vacation accrual whatsoever. Of those 4, 3 are cities that we would consider to be comparative for ISC evaluation. What you'll note is that if we go to the bottom of that column and look at Auburn, within our current code language, NA does not mean not applicable within our city. Per existing ordinance, NA actually means that there is no cap on vacation accrual, whereas the other cities that we see with Renton, Bellingham, Marysville, and Edmonds is that they do not accrue vacation. So the NA that you'll see on those columns versus within Auburn are inherently different. If you look at the third column for vacation cash out upon separation, you'll note that the cities that are in the chart where there is vacation accrual, there is payout upon separation, and in those situations, there is consistently a cap that has been provided. That is the second piece to note. As we continue down and look at the column under the mayoral comparisons for our sick leave cash out upon separation, you'll see in this arena as well that we have a number of NAs corresponding again to Renton, Bellingham, Marysville, and Edmonds, where there is not sick leave accrual. Where there is sick leave accrual and cash out upon separation, in many of those circumstances, there is a cap that is established in place there as well. There are a couple that you'll note within Kent. There is a sick leave accrual cap and no cash out whatsoever. And in in Federal Way, where there's sick leave accrual and capped at $760, there is no cash out upon separation. So again, evaluating here that we see that where sick leave is accrued by regional mayors, there is frequently either a cap on distribution at separation or there is no distribution whatsoever. So within this chart and matrix, we use these findings to put together our next proposals that we'll see on the following slides. You'll note as well on the comparison chart as we move off that there are some other bullets and elements that were gathered and noted by HR as they presented and had shared the material to us that recaps some of the different handlings and contingencies that you'll see in other regional cities. One of the things that makes this unique and interesting is that there is, as you'll note, considerable variation as we go. So our first finding with the Independent Salary Commission is that upon review, the committee determined that there was a need to clarify the ordinance language under Auburn City Code 2.08.020, which formed the Independent Salary Commission, or the ISC, and the practices of that commission. In setting the ISC's purpose, Auburn City Code 2.08.020 uses the term compensation, which on its face could be interpreted to include both salary and benefits, which might include sick leave, vacation, or other things for the mayoral position. However, in practice, the committee determined that the ISC has not been voting on vacation leave, sick leave, or management leave benefits based on the meeting's minutes and historical information provided by HR. With this, and based on these findings, the committee recommends that council work with legal to modify Auburn City Code 2.08.020 and clarify the authority of the ISC to be limited to elected official salary recommendations. And so with this, we have a motion that'll be available to revise the ordinance for the Independent Salary Commission and clarify that only salary is to be authorized by the ISC, and to apply this in a timeline to be as soon as possible. Do we have any questions on the first recommendation? Seeing none, I'll continue to the second recommendation. With our second, on the topic of vacation leave, upon review, the committee determined that comparable cities rely on an accrual cap for vacation leave benefits for the office of the mayor. The absence of any cap, by comparison, would be considered an anomaly. Our recommendation based on these findings is that the committee recommends that council introduce a cap for vacation leave accruals for the office of the mayor. We recommend adding language to Chapter 2.03 of Auburn City Code for the office of the mayor, and as part of that, implementing a cap to match the mean accrual rate for Auburn City directors at 364 hours. Our action in this was that I will be asking council for input as we review and select the appropriate method to implement this action going forward, and that we would also seek to bring a motion to have staff revise ordinance language based on our selected method for implementation, which will be drafted and brought back as part of ordinance review. Now, on our next slide, we'll discuss what we mean by method to implement. So when we refer to method to implement, we have different options available. To implement now, an available approach is that we would be able to establish the new cap for vacation accrual for the mayoral position. In doing so, we recommend allowing for the retention of 182 hours of the mayor's existing vacation hours and payout at 100% any accumulated hours over that amount, with the payout to be issued within 30 days of the ordinance's effective date. We would seek to utilize that new cap going forward, and the approach is to maintain earned benefits, to allow for an existing bank of hours to be available for use, to put the cap into effect immediately, while also allowing for immediate accruals with the new cap in place, and also to allow for payout at termination up to the new cap. And so with this, we can have HR provide us what that anticipated payout cost would be for that option. Whereas with a delayed start, we would implement the new cap at the start of the next mayoral term. This approach would allow for a continued accumulation for the remainder of the current term, and HR as well can provide our anticipated payout cost for this option. Do we have any questions so far?
Councilmember Baldwin, if you could just go ahead and do the presentation, and then we'll do questions at the end of it.
Certainly. So we'll be seeking input from council as to the different options for implementation for modifying vacation leave. Additionally, with regards to the sick leave benefit, upon review, the committee determined that each comparable city is different with regards to the office of the mayor's sick leave payout. With regards to Auburn, the committee finds that policies that reward behaviors that encourage the mayor to come in sick are not in the best interest of the city, and where digital, hybrid, and remote work is technologically available, and where the deputy mayor, council, and executive leaders are available to support public events as alternates. Based on these findings, we recommend the committee recommends that council modify Chapter 2.03 of Auburn City Code to incorporate lessons learned from the pandemic and align sick leave of the mayoral position with that of City of Auburn unaffiliated staff. In this space as well, we're seeking to review and discuss options with council, as we'll see on the next slides. And we would like to bring forward a motion for staff to revise ordinance language based on the options that we are selecting, as well as a method to implement. So when we talk about options for our sick leave, as you'll note in comparison with our chart that we had, we have two potential paths here. What we would recommend as the preferred recommendation of the committee would be to introduce a graduated payout for the office of the mayor based on tenure to match that of unaffiliated staff accrual rates. And the second option, which would be to have no cash out of accrued sick leave for the office of the mayor, and that reflects what we see with other neighboring cities. So that will be one area for discussion, and then with this path, the next piece that we're seeking input is, again, with the method to implement. With regards to sick leave, our approach to implement now would be to establish the new sick leave payout model for the office of the mayor, to pay out the full amount of accrued sick leave at 100% effective of the date the ordinance goes into effect, to issue a check within 30 days of the ordinance's effective date, and to provide a new set of front-loaded sick leave at 120 hours, which will be subject to the new graduated payout model. HR will be able to provide the anticipated payout cost for this option, as well as we have a delayed start method, which would be to implement the new cap at the start of the next mayoral term. This approach would allow continued accumulation for the remainder of the current term, and with this one as well, HR will be able to provide our anticipated payout cost for this option. The key highlights of these recommendations is that we came into this with a desire that anything earned remains earned. And per RCW, we've identified and confirmed that the mayoral salary cannot decrease within an active term, but that benefit modification may be made during an active term. We would highlight that we seek to have the ISC changes take effect immediately, with the Independent Salary Commission to oversee only elected official salary changes and to continue to do so, and with the vacation leave accrual and payout language that would be modified for the office of the mayor, and our sick leave accrual and payout language to be modified as well for the office of the mayor. And with that, we have time for questions and discussion on each of those paths and recommendations. I believe Councilmember Trout Manuel, you had the first question.
Councilmember Baldwin, I will control this part. Thank you. Councilmember Trout Manuel, you had a question.
Yes, I did. Could you go back to the beginning where vacation leave, implementing now, allow for an existing bank to remain available for use? What bank are we talking about?
So what we're proposing with allowing for retention, as we were working with staff, we had input in that if we were to implement initially, we originally discussed doing a full payout of everything that had been accrued to date, but our staff provided feedback that using up all hours could create challenges if there was a need to use something the immediate next day. So our objective was to find a threshold, and we selected the halfway point of the proposed 364 hours cap that's being proposed. The halfway does two things. It would allow both for a bank to remain available for immediate use, as well as provide room for accruals to occur up to that new 364 cap. So that allows for viability. Additionally, with the payout at termination up to the new cap, that means that the 180 that had remained of existing hours would be payable in full if it was still part of the bank at future termination.
Other questions? Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. Appreciate all the work that's gone into this recommendation. I have a few comments, and I think the approach I'm going to take is each one of those individually, the three recommendations. I would preface my comments about the Independent Salary Commission. I would say that independent salary commissions, the purpose of those commissions are to take the politics out of setting compensation. I noticed there was a discussion in this presentation about compensation being salary and could be considered benefits as well. And I will tell you, in my professional life, I've negotiated collective bargaining agreements. Certainly, compensation is all of those things. I'm not certain I understand why we would want to inject more politics into this discussion by removing benefits from the responsibility of the Independent Salary Commission. That being said, moving to the second item of vacation leave, and I guess I can speak to both vacation and sick leave. We see the comparisons between several of the cities and what we do here in Auburn, and you note that this is an anomaly, what we see here in Auburn. But I don't see, what I don't see in the analysis is what has been done previously in this city. And it is my understanding that, at least in part or in whole, this condition of the banking of benefits, either vacation or sick leave, has been around for 3 mayors. And so I would just say that it seems like we're not looking back to see the precedents that we have. We may want to change those approaches, but referring back to my professional life, I do not believe it's good policy to reduce compensation for current employees or reduce working conditions for current employees. And so my recommendation would be, if we're going to make a change, that we need to do that at the end of the term of the current mayor. And I would be much more amenable to supporting that than reducing the compensation that has existed previously for past mayors and has existed for the current mayor, but in the middle of this term, for us to reduce compensation, I think is wrong. So, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Councilmember Baldwin.
I would like to speak to those points that were brought up. The first piece is noting, as Councilmember Brown had said, good policy. And I think one of the findings that is worth noting that was discussed with frequency in our committee is that there is a distinct difference between ordinance and policy. And the very reason that we would seek to move this into ordinance is because the mayoral role has oversight to policy and the ability to change policy. And while we've had good faith and good leadership in Mayor Backus, what we're looking for is to close loopholes going forward and make sure that we are not in a position as a city where someone inbound could take advantage of that beyond what is currently within our ordinance and policy combined. And so in seeking to have this cleanup, what we're looking to do is make sure that the handling for that position, because it is a unique position, it is not a standard staff position, this is an elected official, that is handled by ordinance. And we seek to keep alignment for that role to make sure that it is in step with the benefits received by our directors, making sure it is in step with the benefits of our unaffiliated staff, and so that it is not a position to be at a level beyond others in the city, but to be equitable with those. And so to that piece of good policy, I think what we're looking to do is make sure that we don't leave it in policy, because we're trying to have the checks and balances that are necessary for good government. Additionally, with the ISC, it's worth noting that this is the Independent Salary Commission, not the Independent Compensation Commission. RCW provides that salary cannot change within a term, and we're not seeking to change salary. What we are looking to do is to clarify benefits and bring them into alignment and put them into ordinance. And so that is my piece to those points.
Councilmember Malinga.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to know, can you show us where that RCW is? I just want to look it up for myself later.
I might ask that Kendra provide the RCW, Attorney Como.
Thank you. I am referring to RCW 3521.015 for the general proposition that Councilmember Baldwin has stated, but I would prefer to follow up with an email for the exact language and citation if you don't mind, Council.
Other questions? Councilmember Trout Manuel.
I don't have a question, but I just have a comment to Mr. Brown, Councilmember Brown. When this came up to council and we all came to know that this is something that we were not aware of, and we probably wouldn't have been aware of because it doesn't pertain to us. But it was brought up to us, it was noticed by all of us, and just because it has been happening in the prior years, no one ever seemed to look at it. And so to try to correct this, we need to do something to correct it. And this is, I appreciate everything that the ad hoc has done and our staff has done to bring this to forefront for all of us to see and read and understand. And I understand that Mayor Backus has been part of this discussion prior to her becoming a mayor. And so it just, for us to make sure that we balance everything at the end of the day, this is something that I feel that we need to do to get it corrected. And nothing against anybody or positions or anything. It's just for us to make sure that we correct what has been in the past and do it the right way. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I appreciate the comments back that I'm hearing from my fellow council members. My point that I would reiterate is that, while it is certainly the prerogative of this council to make any changes that we want with respect to vacation and sick leave accrual and the banking of those hours, we certainly can do that. Now, I'm not quite sure I understood what you were saying about that Mayor Backus, prior to being the mayor, was part of were you on the council at the time?
No, I was not at the council, but
Councilmember Trout Manuel.
I apologize, Mayor. I was not on the council, but when this was brought up, the mayor sent an email to me on the minutes that when this took place. And on there, it showed that our mayor was a council member in 2013. So that's why I'm saying that this was brought up at that time. And I think that at that time, it should have been corrected instead of proceeding on to where where it was brought to our attention. So that's what I was saying.
Okay.
Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to reiterate that I strongly feel like if we need to make these changes, that we need to do that to be effective at the end of the current mayor's term. I just think that's the only fair way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councilmember Baldwin.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councilmember Brown and Councilmember Trout Manuel, for your input. To that point of seeking equity and seeking fairness, I think our objective with the committee and our recommendations as we move forward is that we are seeking to make sure that we are having sufficient planning to have, as I had noted in earlier slides, a full payout of accrued sick leave, and then to reestablish a net new balance that would be available for the new payout. That is ensuring that those benefits are earned. That's not taking away anything that is out there. If we're doing a forward look or looking ahead, talking about potential things, there are many potential things. It is a potentiality that time will pass. It is a potentiality that the mayor will finish her term. But it is not necessarily a guarantee. Anything could happen, and I wouldn't wish anything negative on the mayor whatsoever. She does a great job, and I want to keep her around for a long time. But the reality is that there's something distinctly different between what has passed to date and what has been accumulated and earned to date, and the unknown of what is ahead. And what I'm seeking to do, and the reason we have the options to implement this now and to have a handling that will ensure as much equity as we have been able to establish and to be as collaborative as we can, is to make sure that we are ready should anything happen, that we're not kicking this issue down the road, that we're not trying to deal with it later, that we found an item and that we're addressing it as soon as we can. And I see that as being our duties as council. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'm just going to make one to address Councilmember Trout Manuel. Yes, I did give you the minutes of that meeting to show you because you had said that this decision had been made behind closed doors. It was not made behind closed doors. It was made in the full public viewing of a council meeting, and it was then Councilmember Largo Wales who made the motion to approve the addition of full sick leave payout for then Mayor Pete Lewis. So when you're saying it should have been corrected then, the motion was made, seconded, and voted 6-0 because Councilmember Partridge was not in attendance that night to put that benefit in effect. There was nothing to correct. It was a motion made that night, and it was passed that night. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, let's move on to the consent agenda. All matters listed on the consent agenda are considered by the City Council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. Is there a motion? Deputy Mayor Jayraj.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Trout Manuel.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Jayraj.
Thank you, Mayor. The consent agenda for this evening consists of minutes of April 3rd, 2023 City Council meeting, claims and payroll vouchers as described by Finance Chair Kate Baldwin and recommended by the Finance Committee. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from council? All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no. Consent agenda passes. Right, I have no unfinished business listed. I am not sure if we have any new business. Councilmember Baldwin.
Thank you, Mayor. I would have a motion to request that the City Attorney's Office draft an ordinance amending Auburn City Code 2.08.020 to clarify that the city's Independent Salary Commission sets only the salary for the mayor and city council members.
Thank you. Is there a second? Deputy Mayor Jayraj.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Baldwin.
Thank you, Mayor. The city's Independent Salary Commission, or ISC, is empowered by Auburn City Code 2.08.020, which provides that the ISC's purpose is to set the salary for the mayor and city council members. But the code section also uses compensation to describe the ISC purpose. This term is open to interpretation. The proposed code amendment would clarify that, consistent with its history and practice, the ISC's jurisdiction is limited to setting only the salary for the city's mayor and council members, and will specify that Auburn City Code 2.08.020 use of the term salary does not include city employment benefits described in Auburn City Code 2.63 and or in city policies.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? Councilmember Brown.
I would just comment that I think this is not the right way to go, that we want our independent salary commission to be involved in all compensation. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councilmember Rakes.
I would like to make a comment to Councilmember Brown's. So I'm a little confused because if they wanted to be involved, why was there no notes that they were involved in the benefits?
Having not been a member of the Independent Salary Commission, I really can't answer that. I'm just stating the opinion that all forms of compensation should be the subject of an Independent Salary Commission. Again, to, as I stated earlier, to take as much politics out of the issues of compensation for publicly elected officials. That kind of screwed up my train of thought there. I just believe we want to not. Okay, let me just say this. I have been on this council at a time when certain members of the council, their position was indicated by somebody else's position. In other words, if you're for it, I'm against it. And I've seen, pretty negative behavior from this dais from certain members of council, where, I just would like to take that out of the idea of how we provide for salaries and benefits. That's all. Independent Salary Commission, I think, is a good way to go.
Other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to request the city attorney draft a motion to remove compensation from Auburn City Code for the Independent Salary Commission and have it solely as salary, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no.
No.
Motion passes. Okay. Councilmember Baldwin.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a second motion, and this is to request that the City Attorney's Office draft an ordinance setting vacation and sick leave benefit provisions for the Office of the Mayor pursuant to the Ad Hoc Committee's report and recommendations to the Council.
Councilmember Baldwin, I'm not sure that your recommendation is...
You're on?
Yes, Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, I would just say the motion, which hasn't been seconded, so I probably shouldn't even be speaking on it yet, but there are two options for both for vacation and sick leave. Are you differentiating between the two options for each of those categories?
Councilmember Baldwin.
Sure. Within this motion, the objective would be to continue to work with staff in drafting the ordinance, which would come before council as part of study session per our usual practices. In that study session, we'll review with further detail the proposed vacation and sick leave ordinance for the city. The options that were presented tonight were to get head nods in a direction or another as we go to draft that language.
So, Councilmember Baldwin, you're asking for the city attorney to draft an ordinance, but not necessarily having the language, because there has been no determination.
What I have presented, we have room for discussion, as was noted at the end of the slide. I would be happy to have further discussion with council in that space. From a recommendation standpoint, the committee does recommend a cap of 364 hours to be established for vacation leave. Likewise, we do recommend going with the graduated payout approach for sick leave. The guidance that we were seeking from council is directionally as to whether that is preferred implementing now or with a delayed implementation. I believe from drafting ordinance, we can take action in drafting that with the approach to implement now, but I want council to be able to be aware and bring to study session when we would be reviewing that, the things that they can ask about, consider, propose as far as adjustments on that ordinance language as it comes together.
Thank you. All right. Would you like the council member to repeat her motion before we ask for a second?
So I have the language of the original motion. It would be whether or not, as it sits, if the city attorney feels she has enough direction.
So I see two options. I think it's a proper motion as stated to draft an ordinance related to the vacation and sick leave benefits as applied to the office of the mayor. If there is an additional request, though, to have specificity, such as a cap of 364 vacation hours and a graduated payout approach for sick leave and implementation now, we could add that to the motion. That is not currently part of the motion as it was stated. So there are two options. It's either to rescind the prior motion and make a more specific motion, or let the prior motion stand and call for a second.
Councilmember Baldwin, what would you like to do?
I am happy to rescind the motion and restate the motion with specificity.
All right.
I move to request that the city attorney's office draft an ordinance setting vacation and sick leave benefit provisions for the office of the mayor pursuant to the ad hoc committee's report and recommendations to the council to establish a vacation leave cap of 364 hours and to establish a graduated payout of sick leave accrual based on the rates used for unaffiliated staff, and to follow a method to implement now.
So you're recommending the implementation now as opposed to the options that you said for implement now or delayed start?
In order to draft the ordinance, that is correct.
I don't know that it would have to have either on the ordinance. It could have an effective date of either, but all right. Is there a second? Deputy Mayor Jayaraj.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Councilmember Malinga.
Thank you, Your Honor. With the motion, with the specifics, is there still options to talk about the delay start, or is that off the table if the other motion goes forward?
So, Councilmember Malinga, any motion or any ordinance can be modified. I think this is to bring one to the study session for additional discussion and any modifications to then be made by the city attorney prior to it coming back before the dais for council vote.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Baldwin.
Speaking to the background of the motion, the vacation and sick leave benefits for the office of the mayor are set forth in city code and city policy language, and when read together, this combined language provides vacation and sick leave accrual and payout terms for the office of the mayor that differ from those available to other city employees. Applicable city code sections should be amended and or new sections created as needed to provide for vacation and sick leave benefits for the office of the mayor pursuant to the ad hoc committee's report and recommendations to council, and the city attorney's office shall prepare the initial draft of this ordinance for review and input from the ad hoc committee and the city's human resources department. The draft ordinance will include benefit payout terms for the current city mayor to coincide with the proposed city code revisions, and the ad hoc committee shall have final approval of the drafted ordinance to be submitted to council for consideration in study session.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the request to have the city attorney draft an ordinance referring to mayoral vacation and sick leave, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no.
No.
Motion passes. All right, we will move forward. I don't believe there are any other ordinances or any other new business, so we will move to ordinances. Ordinance number 6900, an ordinance amending ordinance number 6879, the 2023-2024 biennial operating budget ordinance, and ordinance number 6888, the 2023-2024 biennial capital budget, authorizing amendment to the City of Auburn 2023-2024 budget as set forth in Schedule A and Schedule B. Is there a motion? Councilmember Baldwin.
I would move to adopt ordinance number 6900.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Malinga.
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilmember Baldwin.
Thank you, Mayor. So ordinance number 6900, or budget amendment number 1, represents the first budget amendment for the 2023-2024 biennium. The first budget amendment of the biennium consists of carry-forwards of funds under contract in the previous year, carry-forwards of unexpended ARPA funds, new expenditures offset by new revenues, such as grants, and limited requests for new budget authority. And this was reviewed in our previous study session. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments? All those in favor of ordinance number 6900, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Resolutions. Resolution number 5701, a resolution reviewing a schedule of prices for services provided by the Auburn Valley Humane Society to ensure competitive service prices. Is there a motion? Deputy Mayor Jay Raj.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make a motion to approve resolution number 5701.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Baggett.
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jay Raj.
Thank you, Mayor. This resolution approves the fee schedule changes for certain mandatory services as recommended by the Valley Humane Society, and they definitely do need it. We heard from them last week, so we should go ahead and do this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, questions or comments? All those in favor of resolution number 5701, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Resolution 5701 passes. Resolution 5713, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement between the City of Auburn and King County to implement the 2023-2024 Local Hazardous Waste Management Program and to accept and expend program grant funds. Is there a motion? Is there a motion? Councilmember Trout Manuel.
Yes, I'd like to make the motion to accept resolution number 5713 to accept a 60.
Just the motion.
Oh.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Malinga.
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilmember Trout Manuel.
Thank you, Mayor, and I apologize. I get a little excited here. Resolution number 5. I make the motion to accept resolution number.
Councilmember Trout Manuel, you've already made the motion. You're explaining the motion.
Okay. Resolution number 5713 is to accept a $6,213.58 grant from the King County for the city to use for 2023 to 24 local hazardous waste management program.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
I do have a comment.
Deputy Mayor Jay Raj.
Thank you, Mayor. It was $60,213.58.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of resolution number 5713, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Resolution 5713 passes. Resolution number 5715, a resolution declaring an Auburn Police Department K-9 as surplus property and approving its transfer to a purchaser by contract. Is there a motion? Councilmember Malinga.
Your Honor, I would like to move that we approve resolution number 5715.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Baggett.
Second that, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilmember Malinga.
Thank you, Your Honor. Resolution 5715 allows the mayor to enter into a sale and hold harmless agreement for the surplus of retired Auburn Police K-9 Lou. K-9 Lou retired from the active duty with the Auburn Police Department on March 31st, 2023.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? Councilmember Brown.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. I just want to comment that how fortunate we are to have these dedicated K-9 officers do the work that they do. They put their lives on the line, and they do so willingly. And so I just appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments? All those in favor of resolution number 5715, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no. Resolution 5715 passes. All right, we will move to mayor and council member reports. At this time, the mayor and city council may report on significant items associated with their appointed positions on federal, state, regional, and local organizations. We will begin with the deputy mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report this week.
Thank you. Councilmember Malinga.
No report, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rakes.
Yes, on Wednesday, I attended the arbor tree planting, and that was really fun. And then I attended the, losing my thought here. No, I attended the benefit for Terry's home. And I was very touched by that. The lady, I got to meet Terry, which was good. And they started out talking about the story about Terry and how, it's every mother's nightmare to get that phone call. And I was one of those mothers that got that phone call, and so it really touched me. And it turned out to be a great benefit.
Thank you. Councilmember Baggett.
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilmember Trot Manuel.
No report. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilmember Baldwin.
No report. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Well, I will. So there are a few items of note that I would like to share with you. On Wednesday, April 5th, along with Mayor Ralph of Kent, we hosted U.S. Congressman Adam Smith, as well as King County Council member and current chair Dave Upthegrove, out in the property that lies between the city of Kent and the city of Auburn on Green River Road and by the Pea Patch soccer fields. We had our anti-homelessness outreach administrator, Kent Hay, as well as our community response team officers and King County Regional Homelessness Authority, as well as other outreach workers, to tour some of the encampments that are in that area. And it is shocking to see how people are existing. I will not say living. They are existing. That's work that we continue to do on a daily basis to try and provide resources and services to those individuals. Definitely appreciate Congressman Smith's willingness to come out and tour the encampments, put on the old clothes and the boots, and go out and walk through the mud and some of these areas. And then on Friday the 7th, working with the cities of Kent, Renton, and Tukwila, talking about what the image of a behavioral health hospital or clinic in South King County may look like in the future if there are funds available, something that we want to make sure that we have a strong voice in. On Tuesday the 11th, I was up in Seattle, hosted by Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell for the U.S. Conference of Mayors Legislative and Policy meeting, where mayors from throughout King County got together to talk about the specific and significant issues each of their cities are facing. We are all facing the same issues: affordable housing, crime, drug use, and a lack of police officers because of some of the laws in this state and the fact that we have lost numerous officers throughout this state. We will be getting back together again, and development of that bond to be able to reach out on a regular basis to discuss the issues is something that is critically important to the well-being of each of our cities. On Saturday the 15th, I attended a New Year's celebration by the Tamil community up in Redmond. Very much appreciated their hospitality and their graciousness in hosting. Two things for future. As a reminder, the State of the City address will be held this Wednesday night. Doors open at 5 p.m. up at the Muckleshoot Event Center. I hope to see you all there. And also acknowledgement that at our upcoming Cities and Schools meeting, which includes the cities of Auburn, Algona, and Pacific, as well as Green River College and the Auburn School District, I will be presenting a proposal to have an opioid and fentanyl task force. The mission statement is to ensure that South King County region works collaboratively to reduce opioid and fentanyl addiction, prevent overdose deaths, and improve the quality of life for all members of our communities. And there will be an education and prevention piece, healthcare, law enforcement and justice, workforce development and housing, treatment and recovery, and identifying of potential task force members, because here are some of the stats on the King County website for opioid and fentanyl. As of April 17th, 2023, 107 days into this year, there have been 388 known drug and alcohol deaths, with 46 pending. That's 342. In King County, 293 deaths. Well, excuse me, that means 2.74 per day. Per day. 3 people dying in King County every day. In 2022, there were 39 overdose deaths related to opioid and fentanyl in Auburn. That's 3.25 per month. And also in 2023, overdoses that were attended to by King County EMS, considered overdoses. In the city of Auburn, and this is only the King County portion, there have been 86. That's 23.9 per month, or 0.8 per day. So if anyone thinks that we shouldn't be focusing more attention on things like drugs and crime, I believe they're sadly mistaken. With that, we have already had our executive session. We are adjourned.